But I'm like, if he had a spiral dick, I feel like she'd know.
I feel like I would notice that, like, oh, something is amiss.
Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan, the Spine Breakers.
And today we're doing our January wrap-up, also our Tome Infinity and Beyond Round 2 wrap-up, which took place in all of January. And we're drinking something that we've had before, but it's from a brewery that we just got here recently in Missouri. We had it when we were in Milwaukee, but it's SueCee.
SueCee.
You know I had to get it. I mean, it's my name and a dinosaur.
You can't beat it.
But it's from Toppling Goliath Brewing Company, which is in Iowa somewhere. Decorah, Iowa. Decorah? I don't know, but it's a pale ale.
So we're gonna...
I haven't opened mine yet.
Drank it again.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I think it's good. It's a good pale ale.
Not too shabby.
Oh, I didn't finish my first one. I thought I was done with it.
Double fisting it. You know, if you were a T-Rex, you probably couldn't do that.
Alright, also stay tuned at the end because we're going to do bring back TBR jar picks on our channel. But we're going to do it a bit differently this time than we did in the past.
Right.
So, I finished 8 books this month.
Damn, girl.
Which was really good for me. 3 were graphic novels, so they're, you know, shorter, but still pretty good. Way better than I thought I was going to do.
That's super legit.
But I kind of was like, I was in a slump for a long time, and I kind of just got out of it this month. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet. I read 3 books this month, which is about how I thought I was going to do. But I've been in a slump lately, and so 3 books for where I'm at right now with my reading is pretty good.
So the first thing I read was Regression, Volume 2, Disciples, and this is by a graphic novel by Cullen, Bunn, Danny Luckert, and Marie Anger. It continues the story of this man who, he's having these really weird dreams and like hallucinations, and so he undergoes regression therapy to try and figure out what's going on, and things go terribly wrong.
Awry. Shit goes awry.
And it has to do with this like demon cult. But I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I like the story's interesting. I like it. The art is really good. And I counted this for Tome Infinity and Beyond Round 2. I counted this for the challenges of sleep, because, you know, regression therapy, and also oral communication, because there's, I mean, a lot of conversations. It's a graphic novel. There's a lot of conversing involved.
A lot of chatting involved.
So, yes.
Why don't you go ahead and read?
Second, I read another graphic novel, and it is Saga, Volume 1, by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And this was very hyped. A lot of people love this, and it totally lived up to the hype for me. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a, almost like a Romeo and Juliet type of story. They're both in love, but their people are at war with each other, so it's like forbidden for them to be together. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't end the same way Romeo and Juliet did. I got this from the library. You want to see what it looks like when I put something on hold at the library? This is what sticks out. Come sus.
Come sus. Come sus indeed.
Yeah, but this was really good. I gave it 4.5 stars. I have to say, like, in comparison to the other 2 graphic novels I read this month, I don't feel like the art was nearly as good in this one. It's still good, but it wasn't as good as the other 2. And then I also docked it because... yeah. I also docked it because they used the R word at one point.
Yeah, so that's fair.
And
I don't like the R word.
And it was like one of the main characters who you're supposed to be rooting for used it. So it was like even worse that it was, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't like that word. No.
Nope.
Oh, and I used it, the challenges I used it for were shelter, because it's a favorite of one of the hosts, so I could count it for anything. And I mean, they are kind of seeking shelter in this too, so I feel like it could still count. And then procreation, because obviously they have a baby.
There's a baby.
It actually begins with her giving birth. So.
It's kind of badass that she's like breastfeeding on the cover.
Well, look at the first page of this. It's her saying, "Am I shitting? It feels like I'm shitting."
So I finished The Martian by first I finished Feral, JK, by James Demonaco and BK Evenson. This, I thought was a zombie novel because I didn't really pay attention to the synopsis. No. It is about this virus that spreads to like all men, and it either kills them or it turns them into ferals. And so they basically like regress, and they they operate like pack animals basically. And they're like aggressive to each other for dominance, but they are like very, very aggressive and violent toward women. Like they killed women on sight basically.
Why?
It's something to do with their chromosomes. I don't know. I mean, it's written by men,
they don't want to like procreate.
I think they realize. Well, no. Spoiler alert. They realize like after a few years of this virus being live or whatever, the men start to gain a little bit more intelligence, so they're not just raw aggression, and they start kidnapping women and impregnating them.
I see.
Rather than just killing them.
Okay.
So spoiler alert. So I counted this as for tier 1 for air because the virus is airborne. This would also count for apocalyptic. It would count for that. And then, I mean, I guess you could maybe count it for medicine because it talks a lot about like immunity and the virus spreading and so on and so forth. So it was not good. Like it wasn't good though. Would I give it 2 stars?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there was like a stupid romance in it that was it was like a weird insta-lovey kind of thing. The ending was super predictable. Like it got to a certain point and I was like, oh god, I can tell exactly how this is gonna go. And like I felt like the main character was super tropey because she was like she was an athlete and a really popular girl, and then all of this happened, and then she's like this quiet, mysterious badass who just kills the ferals left and right, and she's like a kick-ass scout and all this like, so I don't know, I just felt like it was nonsense. I didn't like it.
It was nonsense. So the next book that I finished was The Vorrh by Be Catelyn. And this is kind of more fantasy than sci-fi, but there's like a little bit of sci-fi sprinkled in. There's these weird robots in it that their presence is never really explained, or I just didn't get it. It follows several different storylines, different people, but it all kind of centers around this forest called the Vorrh, and it's this magical, very dangerous forest. If you go in, you just get disoriented and you completely lose your memory. And there's lots of weird stuff in there that can kill you. And it's also biblical somehow, like that it's said that the Garden of Eden exists in this forest, and Adam, the first man, still lives there, but he's like regressing, so he's like an ape now. It's weird, y'all.
That sounds very strange.
I gave it 3 stars. I was kind of one of those where like while I was reading it, it went quickly and I enjoyed it. But once I put it down, I didn't really want to pick it up again. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. It wasn't like you weren't compelled to.
Yeah, like while I was reading it, I'm like, what the fuck? Like it was just so weird that I wanted to know what happened next. But once I put it down, I was like, And there was a couple storylines that I'll fully admit that I don't think I understood. Like I didn't know what the hell was going on.
It sounds bizarre.
And I felt like it was like the writing was a little bit pretentious. And I felt like it was like this author trying to be really deep and meaningful, but really just being super fucking weird and not making any sense. I definitely won't continue in the series because it wasn't that good, but it was like intriguing. I feel like it's one of those books that like I don't know whether to recommend it or not, because I think if you read the synopsis and you think, wow, this sounds really interesting and I want to read it, then like read it.
Maybe
because you might really like it.
Maybe you'll dig it.
And I mean, I don't necessarily regret reading it. I don't feel like I totally wasted my time or anything because it was an experience, you know?
Sounds like it.
But if you read it and you're iffy about it, probably just don't read it. The next book I read was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And this, oh, I didn't say the Vorrh for my challenges. I counted this for travel because they travel into the forest and stuff in it. And then I counted it as my fantasy science, or science fantasy rather. Even though, like I said, it's kind of more fantasy than science, but I feel, oh well, also that category you could do bizarre, and I feel like it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it sounds bizarre.
So, there. But anyway, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is about this man who it's set in like a kind of post-apocalyptic future. Most humans have like left Earth to live elsewhere because I think the air, from what I understand, it seemed like the living on Earth basically slowly kills you.
Sounds about right.
But this guy still lives here for some reason, and his job is to hunt down androids and kill them because for some reason they're not supposed to live on Earth. They're banned. I don't know why. Yeah, so it's kind of this question of like what really counts as being human, because these androids have their own thoughts and feelings and stuff, but
technically they're not like 100% human.
Yeah. And I was really into this book for like the first half of it. And then the second half happened and I was like, First of all, I didn't like the main character, Rick. Which I'm not sure if I was supposed to like him. I don't think he was supposed to be like a hero character. I think he was supposed to be like complex and have flaws and stuff, but I just really didn't like him. There's a part where he is describing this android, a female android, and he describes her as looking kind of childlike, and then on the next page he has sex with her. And I was like, gross.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, this book was published in the 60s and it's written by a man, so there was a lot of descriptions of like every woman, her boobs were described for some reason. And so that was just kind of like, ugh. Obviously didn't have much of an impact on me because I'm kind of struggling to even remember it super well right now. And it hasn't been that long since I read it. I mean, Blade Runner is based on, loosely I think, based on this. I haven't seen Blade Runner, so I don't know, but from what I've
it's
heard.
300 years long.
Okay.
It felt like 2 days. I had to take a break. Like, I watched it at home and I was like, can we just be done now, please? Can we be done?
Yeah, I think this one again was just mediocre. I gave it 3 stars. The challenges I counted this one for was acting in theater because there's a movie based on it, and then invention because the androids were invented by somebody.
True fact. Next, I finally fucking finished The Martian.
That's been on your TBR for a while.
Oh, by Andy Weir. And so everyone knows what this is about. A dude gets stranded on Mars and survives.
Spoilers!
Spoiler alert!
I actually haven't seen the movie or anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't survive.
I mean, I assumed he survived. But
maybe he survives for a time, but he dies. But anyway, I was really into this for the first half of it.
Same as it?
Yeah, and then the second half, it wasn't that anything happened. It wasn't that, like, there wasn't a specific event that happened in the second half that I was like, it was just like, I got sick of him explaining everything that he was doing. Because, like, that's all it was. It was like, well, gotta find a way to jimmy this so I can survive. Oh, gotta find a way to jimmy that so I can survive. And that's all it was. Like, and so for the first half, it was interesting because I was like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. Like, what a clever fella. That's some ingenuity right there. That's pretty interesting. And then by the second half, I was like, Jesus Christ, like, get him off Mars already. Fuck. Send somebody to pick his ass up. I'm tired. But it wasn't bad. I think I gave it 3 stars. And I actually watched the movie as well. And I liked that too. The movie, I felt like, wasn't quite as tedious because he doesn't have to, like, explain everything he's doing.
Right,
you can see it. But yeah, I did enjoy it. What I really wish they would have talked about more in this book is, like, the effect of essentially living in a social vacuum for over a year. Because, like, he had contact with people, you know, via email and stuff at certain points, but not the entire time that he was on Mars.
Right.
And I feel like psychologically that would have taken much more of a toll. I mean, we have studies that indicate, like, being isolated for X amount of time can do that to people, can fuck with people.
Right.
And it didn't really.
We have a new cat situation.
I've got 2 cats now, and we're learning to cohabitate. Sasha just gets like really excited because she wants to be best friends with a cat so bad, because she is a big cat, but she plays like a dog, and she's huge. She's like 60 pounds, and so when she sees them, she's like, we play! And they're like, whoa, don't rush me. And so yeah, we had a situation, but I fixed it. Oh, I wish they would have talked more about the isolation. I feel like that was kind of a big gap in the story. And I accounted it for water and food, because obviously he had to figure those things out to survive, and it went into great detail about how he did that. It would also count for, I would say, trading, because at one point we have to get help from the Chinese. And we basically, they say, well, we have this probe that's ready, we can send it with supplies, but we would like a Chinese astronaut on the next flight to Mars.
Right.
So trade.
Okay.
Government, because NASA is heavily featured. Music, because he listens to one of his fellow astronauts' disco collection, and that features prominently in this book. Okay. He makes fun of her for it. And technically, it would count as a space opera because it takes place on multiple planets and in space.
Boom.
So, counted for a lot of things.
The next one I read was The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. And this is set on this planet who the natives there are these little, like, furry green men. They're very peaceful. They basically have no violence or anything at all on their planet. Well, then humans come in
and fuck everything up.
Fuck everything up, yeah. So humans colonize the planet basically for the lumber, because the planet is heavily wooded. Yeah, they kind of enslave the natives. Not kind of, they definitely enslave the natives and terribly mistreat them. And then one specific native says, fuck you, and rises up and goes against his nature to kill a bunch of humans. I really liked this. I liked the story a lot. I will say, still not like a big fan of Ursula K. Le Guin's writing style. I don't know, there's something about it that I don't really enjoy a lot. I feel like she's not subtle at all.
Okay.
with her themes
and stuff.
And I don't care for that. I like there to be a little bit of subtlety. I don't want to feel like the author thinks I'm an idiot and needs to explain everything in detail to me. Not that she really explains everything in detail, but I just feel like
she really throws it in your face.
Yeah. But I really liked it. I liked the story a lot, and I gave it 4 stars. For the challenges, I counted it for dance. Why did I count it for dance? Oh, that was the waltz right in.
Oh yeah, because they waltzed right in and took over.
Yeah.
That was clever.
And then I also counted it as vintage, because it was published in the 70s, I do believe. Yes, 1972. Next I read another graphic novel, and that was Monstress, Volume 1, Awakening, by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. And this is a horror graphic novel, and let me try to explain the story because
oh dear,
it was complex. Let me just read the synopsis, okay?
Deal.
It's set in an alternate world of Art Deco beauty and steampunk horror. Monstress tells the epic story of Mika Half-Wolf, a teenage survivor of a cataclysmic war between humans and their hated enemies, the Arcanics. In the face of oppression and terrible danger, Mika is both hunter and hunted, searching for answers about her mysterious past, as those who seek to use her remain just one step behind, and all the while the monster within begins to awaken. There we go. That is explained it much better than I could have. And the art in this is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's beautiful artwork. Ooh. Let me try to find like a good page to show. I don't know, here's a cool page. It has this like adorable character who's like a little girl who's like part fox. She's really cute. But the art is like 5 out of 5 stars. Beautiful. The story I would give more like a 3 out of 5 stars, only because I felt like it was really difficult to follow. Maybe that's just me. But there's so many different characters and it's hard. And I feel like a lot of them switch sides. Like you think they're on one side and then you realize they're on another side. And so it's hard to keep track of like who's on what side. So I'd give the story 3 stars. So overall, I'd give it 4 stars. But I probably will go ahead and like continue on. Actually, I know I'll continue on because I already bought the 2nd volume.
Nice.
So I'll definitely continue the story. But for this, this actually wasn't on my TBR, but it can still count for some challenges. Goodness. So I was gonna count it for steampunk. Maybe I was just gonna count it for steampunk. Yeah, I think that was it.
Nice. So lastly, I read All the Pretty Horses, which is a newsflash novella by Mira Grant. I loved that series. And so there's a bunch of different little novellas and stuff that she did kind of in between books. And this one happened before the first novel. And it's the story of the parents of the twins in the series. So Michael and Stacy Mason, they lose, this isn't really a spoiler because it's on the back of the first book, but they lose their son in the zombie apocalypse. Like he's one of the first casualties, basically.
Wait, they're twins and they have a son?
Well, no, Michael and Stacy Mason are the parents. And they have a son, I guess they're not twins either, they're brother and sister. But anyway, so Michael and Stacy Mason have a son named Philip. Philip dies.
So Michael and Stacy
are parents.
Are not related?
No.
Okay.
No, they...
I thought you were saying they were brother and sister.
I'm
so confused.
So their son Philip dies, and then they adopt a boy and a girl and raise them afterwards, after that happens. And so this is the story of like right after Philip dies and when Michael and Stacy are kind of figuring out their new normal and like what they're going to do. Okay. And it's a very interesting little novella. It's kind of cool to read after having read the trilogy because like Michael and Stacy Mason are not likable in the trilogy at all. Like they're kind of shitty humans, but this gives you like kind of a insight into like why they became like that.
Right.
And so I enjoyed reading it. I like the writing in it. I think it's a really cool series. And so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And I'm going to read, there's, like I said, there's several novellas and I'm going to read all of them because I think they're really fun. So
cool.
That's my plan.
Did you count it for any challenges?
I could. For education, because Michael Mason was a teacher at UC. I could count it for urban settlements. Because they go into different cities to try to find survivors. I suppose I could count it for writing because they write blogs and things that actually saved people's lives. And yeah, that's about it.
The next book that I finished was the new and improved Romie Futch by Julia Elliot. And this is about a man...
You're being a pest. Come over here.
This is about a man who's like kind of a loser. He's just gotten divorced and is still super hung up on his ex-wife, and he's a taxidermist, but his business is kind of failing because he's also an alcoholic. Yeah, so he's a loser. So he's kind of hit rock bottom, and he sees that there's this study who's wanting to do experiments on men such as himself to make them like super intelligent, and so he decides to do it. But things do not go as smoothly as he would have liked. And I really enjoyed this. I kind of flew through it because I found it super compelling. And it wasn't really what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like he becomes super intelligent and then turns his life around. But no, it was like there was like a conspiracy happening with like this company or whatever it was that did this experiment, and also it involves a weird kind of mutant warthog.
Is it like a fucked up Flowers for Algernon?
I've never read Flowers for Algernon. I don't know. I liked kind of seeing him because I think he thought that this experiment was gonna like fix his whole life.
Okay.
And also like impress his ex-wife and get her back and everything. And he kind of makes a lot of realizations that he's like putting her on a pedestal for one, because she reading it, you're like, she ain't that great, buddy.
She kind of sucks, dude.
Not that he's a catch either, but and I really enjoyed her writing style and everything. One negative for it was just that I kind of started to get sick of it. Like I wish it had been a little shorter because I was kind of like, okay, I get it, I'm over it. Also, I wasn't thrilled with the way metalheads were portrayed as all loser meth heads, whatever. Although
None
I
of the
won't.
metalheads that I know are into meth. Although I'm sure there are.
I know some metalheads that are into meth, so
I know some.
I can't say it's not accurate for some. And I counted it for the challenges of high education because
yeah, you get some fancy learning.
Had all kinds of
fancy brain learning
put in his brain, and technology because again, technology. Last book I read,
oh fuck me,
was Parable of the Talents by Queen Octavia Butler.
Queen Octavia,
which is the sequel to Parable of the Sower. Parable of the Sower was set in this like post-apocalyptic Earth society, United States, I should say. There's been like an economic collapse, and everyone's very poor, and it's very dangerous, basically, because people are just running wild, and it's nuts. But this girl lives in a like gated community that's like pretty secure. But that doesn't last forever, and at some point she has to go out on her own. She has some people with her, but anyway. Right. And she's developing this religion. She's been developing it since she was a child. And in the first book, she's like a teenager. I think when she finally leaves her community, she's what, 18? Or 17?
I think she's 18 because otherwise it would make things maybe a little weird with some other things that happen.
And she's developing this religion that she calls Earthseed, and her goal is kind of to develop Earthseed and spread it to others, and develop a community and stuff around this religion. And so in this book, it's her story, further in her story. But it's told partly from the perspective of her daughter, which I thought was really an interesting way to do it. And this, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil like the first book too, but this book was fucking amazing. I liked it better than Parable of the Sower.
Me too.
Yeah. Both were really good, but this one was just amazing, and
it just like it brutalized my heart. Like,
yeah, it's tough to read at times. Some shit happens. Let me tell you what. But yeah, this was amazing. As you can see, I marked like many places, and the thing, like, it's also what makes it kind of tough to read is that it does parallel so many things that are happening in our society now, and were probably happening when she wrote this as well. And it's just kind of uncanny. And obviously, obviously things are much worse in the book than they are now, but just, she was, like, Octavia Butler is so insightful. Like, she really had her finger on, like, I marked, a lot of the places I marked were things that I was like, yes, like, this is so incredibly true. Like, there's a presidential candidate. Here's a place I marked where it says, Jarrett condemns the burnings, because people are being burned as witches and stuff at this point. Jarrett condemns the burnings, but does so in such mild language that his people are free to hear what they want to hear. Yeah. Sounds pretty familiar.
It does. It certainly does.
And there was just so many places like that I'm like, God, it's like, so true. And it's also
like Octavia Butler was so like, ahead of her time and just like almost prophetic. Like it was insane.
And it's so kind of disheartening to read this and realize that like nothing has changed. Because I mean, obviously I feel like either she was a prophet or things were already
exactly the same.
Yeah, things were already this way back in the, when was this published, in the 90s? Late 90s, I think, 1998. It's like nothing's fucking changed.
But I feel like she's
in fact, I think it's gotten worse now, probably.
I think it has. I think the way that she writes how people react to that candidate and like how like she's very insightful and very like understanding of the human psyche. Like she gets people. And like I just feel like she's Queen Octavia.
She's so fucking good.
She's so good. She's so good. If you have not read her yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. Yeah. But either start, I would say, like, if you're not into, like, sci-fi, maybe start with this duology. Yeah,
I would definitely say, of what I've read, the only thing I have yet to read of hers, only novels anyway, are her Patternist series.
That's amazing, too.
But of what I've read, I would suggest starting either with Parable of the Sower or Kindred, which is where most people start, I think.
Yeah, I would say those are two really great places to start. And if it kind of depends. Like, if you're typically into, like, more historical fiction, start with Kindred. If you're into dystopian
Parable. Or if you're already well into sci-fi and read a bunch of alien shit and stuff already, maybe start with Lilith's Brood. I would say don't start with Fletchling.
Do not start with Fletchling. Because
that one is the most, it's the most polarizing, I think, of her books. Because it's got some very, I mean, all of her books have disturbing stuff in it. All of them do.
All of them do.
But that one is like, in a different way. It's like the main character.
It makes me itchy.
If
you can look past your discomfort, Octavia Butler says some really, like...
Because I think all of her books are going to make you feel uncomfortable.
They all are. And a lot of times, like, I feel like your discomfort can teach you things about yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just because things are weird. But, like, if you can either learn about yourself or look past it, then I think that you can gain a lot from...
Or maybe not even... I wouldn't even say look past it, but, like...
Look into it.
Look into it. Like, what is she... Why is she saying? Doing this or saying this specific thing? Anyway... So, this was a 5 out of 5 stars for me, all the way. Favorite book I've read so far this year. So fucking good, and I counted it for fire. There is plenty of fire happening in here, and religion.
It would also probably count for, like, class structure, which was one of mine, but it would count for that too.
For sure. So that's it. That's all I read. I think that I did all of my challenges for Tome Infinity and Beyond. I think if we can count things for more than 2 challenges, I think we probably covered all of them if we looked into it. Because we did 2 of the video challenges, which count for 2 random challenges. Plus, I'm sure I could count these for more than I said. So I feel like we probably made a galactic empire if we really...
I think we probably did, because this would count for Afrofuturism, I think, as well, because it's slightly in the future, and the main character is African-American, so yeah, I think we probably did hit all of our challenges.
Probably.
So, Galactic Empire.
Galactic Empire up on this bitch.
Up on this
our asteroid.
Yeah, our asteroid. We have a really sweet asteroid situation going on. So if you want to come check out our asteroid, there's beer and a lot of other really cool things here.
All right, should we do our TBR picks now?
Let's do it. I'm using my sweet White River Paddler's mug from last year's Mug Club as my TBR jar.
And I have this fairly cute
jar. I need to update mine, so not all of my own books are in here, so I'm going to update this before the end of next month.
And the way we're going to do this, instead of just drawing one and reading it, because sometimes it's not a book you really are
not feeling it. Not feeling it.
We're going to do this the way Olive from a book Olive does her TBR jar picks, which is we're going to draw 3 and then we're going to pick from those 3 which ones we want to read.
Correct.
So, you want to go first or second?
I will go second.
Want to do the honors and draw my 3?
Yeah, I would love to.
I have a lot more in my jar than you do in yours.
I just want to, because mine's like way out of date. I picked one of different colors.
Yeah. Okay, so this one is The Stranger by Albert Camus, I think. I didn't write the authors down. This is The Farthest Shore, which is by Ursula K. Le Guin. And it's the next book in the Earth-Sea cycle. And this is The Q by Bosma. You didn't like it. I still want to read it, though.
You should read it so we can compare notes.
Yeah. The Q is a dystopian set in, Egypt? To get anything done, you have to get approval, right, from, like, the government.
Right. So you have to wait in this
long line, and the line never moves, basically. Yeah. So that's The Q. And then The Farthest Shore is the 3rd book in the Earth-Sea cycle. And then The Stranger by Albert Camus. Honestly, I don't know what this is about.
Well, there you go.
So,
what are you going to pick?
I think I'm going to go with The Q, because I've been interested in that one for a while. So I'm going to read The Q by Bosma something. I'll put a picture up that has the name. 1.
We're trying to hurry because we're running out of battery power. So if we seem rushed,
I dropped one.
That's okay.
There's 3.
Alright, so I have Tar Baby by Toni Morrison, Life Before Man by Margaret Atwood, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. These are all 3 really great books. I'm going to go with Life Before Man by Margaret Atwood. for my TBR jar pick.
All right. So that's it. This beer is good. I like it.
I dig it.
We're going to sign off because my battery's dying.
So.